Welcome to this episode of She Made It, the podcast where we celebrate creative journeys. Have you ever felt deep within that there's something more you're supposed to be doing, but you're not sure what? Have you ever felt like you're producing a lot, but not expressing at all? Welcome to She Made It. I'm your host, Elle Zimmerman, and I am on a mission to help you cultivate meaning through the path of creativity. Join me to eavesdrop on conversations with brave women who broke through their resistances into a life of authenticity. Because I believe if she made it, you can too. I would love to welcome my lovely co-host, Clara.
Hi, Elle. How are you?
I'm doing great today. I'm so excited to share with you the conversation that I had with Robin Emmerich, our guest today. I met Robin a couple years ago at a women's business network event. It was in Austin, Texas, where she is from, and we just really hit it off. And I had no idea the incredible creative just this expression of creativity behind who she is as a business leader. And really, her story and her art inspired me to open my first palette of paints. So what I learned from Robin really prompted a question that I'd love to ask you.
Okay.
And the question is, what is the last thing you created?
Does dinner count or not?
Dinner does count. Because creating something could be creating a friendship. It could be creating a meal. It could be creating a piece of art.
Yeah. Well, since Ben and I got married a couple months ago, I have loved cooking. So I forget what the last really artisanal thing I made was, but I made this amazing shrimp sauce that my dad makes. And I was really proud of it because it turned out really well and it was really fun. And
now, do you follow recipes or do you like to sort of dabble and just sort of make it up as you go?
I really don't. I just like to throw stuff in and see how it goes.
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes it so fun for me too, is that if it's really good, I can be really proud of it because I made it up.
But then the hope is, can you make it again?
Right.
Well, today, Robin really shares with us how she went from believing that she didn't have a creative bone in her body and how now she's a professional artist, how it was just sort of taking this step into a creative experience, taking a risk, whether it's cooking a meal or painting. And she also shares with us the moment she knew that she should leave her corporate job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because she was transformational coaching and how she was helping people, which she thought would be in the corporate world, started opening up outside the corporate world. And she's also going to share something that I think is so valuable for all of us, no matter where we are on our creative journey. It's her secret to making art without judgment.
That sounds like something we all need.
Hey, Robin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I've known you now for a couple years, and I've watched your creative and professional sort of evolution as you've expanded into so many different things over the last couple years. So you were just a perfect fit to bring to our podcast listeners. And so are you in Austin right now?
I am, yes.
Because I know you're quite the world traveler.
Yes, I love to travel and I love the growth opportunities that travel brings.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time we were scheduled to talk, it was like a Tuesday, and then we were going to talk on Wednesday, and you were like, well, I got to postpone. I'm hopping a flight to Hawaii.
Yes, I booked it 2.5 hours before I left.
Oh my gosh, Robin. That is awesome. Yeah, so to give our listeners just a little bit of background, you started as a life coach about how long ago, and what sort of initiated that transition for you into life coaching?
So it was about 10 years ago, and I was actually in the corporate world of healthcare staffing. And, I had worked my way up the corporate ladder. I found a lot of fulfillment in being able to work with people and assist in their career and really work with them on so many levels. However, I knew there was something more. I just didn't know what that was. And quite honestly, it took a series of life events unfolding, which, it often does, that led me to my acupuncturist, who then helped me to discover, in a sense, like an opening and awakening to spirituality and emotions and energy, and essentially an entirely new world that I didn't know existed.
Yeah, and you have a mentor that you have shared a little bit with me about, who also had quite an impact on this career transition and that opening, that awakening, as you're kind of describing. And I forget, what was her name?
Yes, Dr. Coletta Long. So she was a pioneer in the field of regression and really working with the subconscious mind. So through Dr. Long, I discovered how to identify your thought patterns. I discovered how our emotions can be stored in our cellular memory in our body, and we can go into past experiences and literally feel where they're being held in our body. And once we release those, and I'm kind of summarizing it right now, but as we release those, we are no longer energetically attracted to patterns that are naturally giving us the opportunity to take a deeper look and find those patterns.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I think, again, that was sort of your path of healing, correct?
It was. And, going back to, at that point, I guess I'd lost my father like 9 years before, whenever I discovered this. So I remember the moment that I discovered that our past experiences can be affecting us now. I was shocked, and I was like, gosh, that was, almost 10 years ago. How could I not have moved through that? It didn't make sense to me until I stepped into it and began learning and discovering. And of course, I truly feel that personal development, personal growth, spiritual growth, creative growth, all of it is an experience. And until you have those experiences, it's very difficult to translate it into words or share with people, because each experience is so unique and so powerful.
So make the connection for me from corporate to now coach, and also then creative. How did you go from that? Because so many of our listeners, they're in that corporate job. They're just like you. They know there's more, and they really don't even know how to make the next move. And you said it was your acupuncturist, but like literally, how did you transition, and kind of talk us through that process for you?
Sure. Yeah. So, there's so many ways that I could describe it, but what comes to me right now is how when you take one step in, the next step unfolds. So, I could go through thousands of steps, but, my acupuncturist discovered stored grief. He led me to my next mentor. She led me to my next mentor. I literally at the bookstore, and you hear this often, and it really, really happens, where I saw a book that I was looking for that I'd been told about. I found it on the shelf for $1, and I opened it up, and on the inside it said "Love, Dad."
Wow!
I know it was miraculous, and that particular book was actually really helping me to get in touch with what I believed religiously, spiritually, the whole, like really digging into my core beliefs. So it's like each little puzzle piece unfolds as you step into it. And through my work with Dr. Coletta Long is how I discovered how to get into a more meditative, connected state. That then led me to my art being able to, very similar to the work that I do in my office, start doing it on my own. And I literally, like, one day I just, in my opinion, took a risk because I said, I don't have one creative bone in my body. And I had a friend that was an artist that said, just come paint with me. And I said, okay. and I literally believed I did not have one creative bone in my body, like, to my core. And so I went to her house. We turned on music. So I essentially had known the power of music through my work in regression and through all of my transformational work. So I set an intention for that painting to open my heart more to love. And so I set that intention, and 4 or 5 hours later, I opened my eyes to this incredible, beautiful painting. And I'm just looking around me like, how did that happen?
Oh, that's beautiful. You know what I love about that too, Robin, is you talk about how you take that next inspired step, and that some people, I think many people get caught up in the end. Where am I going? And
Yeah.
I think just focusing on the next inspired step. And then the other thing that you did that I think you exemplify beautifully is detaching from the results.
Mm-hmm.
Not, going to paint with no preconceived outcome, and just letting yourself be in the moment, truly let go, truly experience it, and let the sort of miracle open itself up right before you.
Yes. And, I think in a way that's the beauty of not being a trained artist, because that's the one area of my life that I cannot have an image of something and attempt to go paint it. It's that's not the way I paint. So there's so much freedom in art when you're simply showing up. And, our art in itself has taught me exactly what you're talking about taking the next step. It's deepened the practice for me of not having expectations and even being a witness to my thoughts, because throughout the art process, to this day, same process, turn on music, set my intention, step into trust. And that's not to say that I won't have thoughts that come up like, oh my gosh, I just messed that up. Or, the conscious mind is strong and always it's there. So the more that you can practice to be with all of you, and just let those thoughts pass, it's very similar to meditation, or when you're like running and you're in the zone, you're just witnessing and allowing life in a sense.
Yeah, I remember meeting with you. I think it was in Austin after one of the EBW Empowering a Billion Women by 2020 event, and we were sitting on a big porch outside of a beautiful hotel, and you were, I think it was then you were telling me about having painted the day before and looking at your art. People can see your art at robinemmerich.com. It's very, I'll let you describe it, but I would say it's very colorful. It's abstract, but you were, and you talk about how you do make a big mess when you paint.
Yeah.
And that your dog ended up like walking through the paint or all through the painting or something.
Yes. That painting was on surrender. My intention was surrender.
Perfect.
And I had to run to my office to take a client right after I had painted. And I went back home to my dog. He's Kobe, a little Yorkie, actually like a 12-pound Yorkie, kind of big, and he's older. So he was in diapers.
Oh my gosh.
And he literally not only stepped across my painting, but also must have slipped, because
Oh my goodness.
his diaper created essentially like the look of a rainbow, two two like rainbow wings in the center of the painting.
Oh my God. Yep,
And
surrender.
he was covered in paint, and my home was covered in paint from his little paw steps everywhere.
That is
so it
perfect.
was quite a moment of deep surrender.
Yeah, testing your philosophies.
It sure was. And the beauty of it is that painting, it's even better. It's even better, and that one is not for sale.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and then
because it took on a whole new meaning after that, which, I had to learn how to detach and sell my paintings pretty quick once they started stacking up on me. And then some are just, some take on a whole new meaning of life than you can ever imagine. And, it's the beauty of life.
Yeah. And I also admire how when you, because I have followed you on Facebook, and I love how you'll paint and then you'll share it and ask for title suggestions. Mm-hmm. And it is so fascinating just to see how others are interpreting the painting.
Yes, and it's also fascinating if you obviously I'm reading through them every time and choosing a title, which I do always choose my titles from someone on the post, but there will typically always be two very similar titles that people will come up with. So I often choose, choose that unless something really jumps out at me that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's it. But at one point I almost wanted to number. I know there's one artist that numbers his paintings, and I'd considered that at first because I think that art is so powerful and speaks to people in so many different ways that I wanted to leave the piece open to what they felt. And then I just randomly and made a post years, because I've been doing it for years on Facebook, and it's amazing to see how people feel from a visual image in front of them. It's just amazing.
And I do love how you title them, though. I do. I mean, I understand the idea of the numbering, but I do love the titles. Can you, this is just sort of like a little selfish question, because I'm so curious as to your technique, because it seems very unique.
Yes, because I can't reproduce it.
One of a kind.
I am literally in such as, like the runners type, in the zone, in a creative zone, that I feel my way through each piece. I was just thinking the other day I should maybe start video recording and see if
oh, that would be really fascinating.
I can start attempting to understand it, but then again, at the same time, it would probably then get me into my head and probably lose my abilities.
It is very because Jackson Pollock, he was very well known for the dripping and the splattering, and there's a lot of video documenting him working, and I would say it's very similar. There was no rhyme or reason. It was very organic, very in the moment, and it became almost art in itself, watching him create the art. And I could see that being very inspiring.
Yeah, it is. And I can tell you that to this day, just as when I started, I simply, it's super simple. I have a drop cloth on the floor, and I'll set my canvas down on the floor, and I'll choose, whatever paints I have in different colors. However, that doesn't mean that I always use those paints. I just grab and use whatever I am drawn to in the process. And I typically paint with my hands. It's very rare that I will use any kind of brushes or tools. I did paint with brushes early on, but oh gosh, it's been years. So I'm typically using my hands, and it's a very immersive experience, which is why I'm a mess during the process, because I'm covered in paint, and my canvas is obviously covered in, there's paint everywhere.
You definitely need to videotape that. That sounds so, I mean, I think that would be really fascinating to watch.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and there's so much freedom in art when you can allow it.
Yeah, and that's the key. It's the permission, granting yourself permission.
Yes, it is. It truly is.
There, I hear often women, mostly women, I think, share that they had permission cut off from them at some point in their life, whether it was a critic or a parent or, whatever those obstacles, either to expression or maybe there was, it's not stable. So I think that is so key to just kind of repeat that and just say that allowing and granting yourself permission, but then to go back to what you said earlier, to detach from the outcome, that it's just for the sake of creating. Yeah.
Yeah. So I recommend that, both women and men to do that in whatever area feels right for them. Before art, I can remember I trained for a half marathon, and then I did a 30-mile charity bike ride, which I hadn't been on a bike since I was a kid. And I got on that bike and I was so wobbly, and here I am, like, about to ride 30 miles. I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? And in that moment, I knew that if I could finish this bike ride, I could do anything.
Yeah. I have to share a funny story real quick.
Yeah.
I decided to do a triathlon because I was a runner and a swimmer, and I had never ridden a bike either since I was a kid. And so I understand that if I can finish this, I can do about anything.
Yes. And it's, so it can be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be art. It can be, something athletic. It can be, getting up in public and speaking, or getting up and doing karaoke at a bar. Like, it can be anything that challenges you to get outside of your comfort zone and do something different.
Yeah. And see yourself in a way differently and experience. Yeah. So one of the words that has come up a couple times in our conversation is the word mess. We talk about the painting is messy, the different parts of life can be a mess. And that brings me to the beautiful business that you've created called Beauty and the Mess, that then becomes yet another extension of your coaching, your art, and your creativity. Can you kind of tell us how that was birthed?
I can. It all kind of flows together, where obviously, like, we kind of mentioned travel, where I have such a passion for travel, and Italy is one of the places that just has my heart. I've led retreats there, and I've gone there multiple times because when I went for the very first time, I was in the costume gallery in Florence, which, funny enough, wasn't even my choice. I was traveling with a girlfriend, and I said, if we can do something spiritual, which to me was going to Assisi, I said, I'll go, I'll go to the museums. So we were in the costume gallery in Florence, and I was looking at this beautiful gold linked, to be honest, I don't even know what it was, but it just, like, went over a woman's body, and it was just these gold links, and it was gorgeous. I don't even know if it would be considered clothing or jewelry or what, but it just, like, went over the body, and I glanced at it, and I thought, oh my gosh, I want to take my art and do something more with it. And I had no idea what that was, but I had that thought. And so then years later, I guess, athleisure had kind of started becoming a trend, and I joined Fabletics VIP Club, which I'm still a part of today. And, I had the opportunity to get out of the black workout clothes, right? And I was wearing colors and prints, and as time went on, I was ordering so many that I was running out of options, and I was getting so many compliments on my workout clothes. So all of a sudden, again, like it's taking each step. All of a sudden, one day I had an idea. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to take my art, put them on yoga pants, and create, I don't know, a fun community of women, like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, like that movie. Did you ever see that?
No, but I remember. Yeah, I remember hearing about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to watch it. I love that movie. And so I kind of took what I was seeing in my private practice, which was, as women, we, one, often don't know our passions, or two, don't know how to follow our passion, or three, don't necessarily have a tribe of women to, support each other through any of those steps. So yeah, it just in an instant, and this was, over years time. It was probably 2 years later that I had the idea, and then Ingrid Vanderveld introduced me to Moss Intimates, which is my manufacturer in Sri Lanka, and they took a leap of faith, trusting in me to design a yoga pant. And then it took about 9 months to get my art onto that yoga pant. And I don't know if you know about Moss Intimates, but they're, one of the world's leading manufacturers, and they don't often work with small designers. However, through our time together, not only did they manufacture a beautiful, like highest quality, amazing wearable art yoga pant for me, but I also joined them in helping them develop an online program for teaching new designers like me.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, how to step into the manufacturing process. So I think that's in trial now. I don't know at what point that will be launched. They, have a whole system to create there, but again, stepping into each thing was just amazing. And then, a year or so later, when my pant was produced and launched, it had a life of its own, with a message to inspire women to follow their passion and embrace the beauty and the mess of life, and create a beauty in the mess tribe, which I'm now creating as Love the Mess, and beginning to create like an online platform for women to join together and continue that conversation. So
that's
it's
really
been
great. Yeah.
It's been really beautiful and amazing, and I'm in so much appreciation for how all of it has unfolded.
Yeah. So Robin, I just am so inspired by you talked a couple times about how you had an inspiration, but it was years later before you saw what that inspiration was really leading you to. But being open and then seeing it and stepping into it when the timing is right. And then now, as you're developing your online community, it's a beautiful sort of like tribute to the importance of community that you've also shown. You talked about how a girlfriend brought you along to go painting. You talked about another girlfriend brought you to the costume gallery. So the importance of those other influences. And so not only are the experiences creating inspiration, but it is the community, the tribe that we bring into our life, surround ourselves with in order to continue to like evolve as our own, human.
Yes. And yes, thank you for pointing that out, because it's so true. And, with my coaching practice, I had just been in deep prayer for years as I was going through my own transformation, praying, how can I serve? Because I had learned such a new world through the transformational work that I didn't know what was going to be next, whether I was going to integrate it into the corporate world, which was actually my first thought, was that I would be teaching corporations transformational work. And as I stayed in my intention to serve all with teach all that I had learned, then my first mentor had offered to mentor me to help other women or other people, which is where my coaching work comes from. And then right after that, literally within that same year, Dr. Coletta Long had not only offered to mentor me to help other people, but also hand down graciously her entire legacy of work, which was over 65 years of pioneering work in the field of regression. So it was literally time and support and allowing through each step.
Mm-hmm. So, Robin, as we start to wrap up our interview and our conversation, I would love to, first of all, give you an opportunity to just share anything, either how people can find you, interesting ways that people might work with you. And then the second part of the question would be, what can we look for next?
What can you look for next? That's a good one. I feel like I never know the answer to that, to be honest.
Well, you got the inspiration a couple years ago, so we're just going to wait, right?
Yeah. I actually just finished writing a book on my entire process. So that will take some time to go through the publishing process. But I did complete my book. It's Love the Mess, along the lines of what I'm really where I'm moving now is, accessing, appreciating, allowing that love within ourselves to guide us daily. So that's where I've opened up to Love the Mess, and that book, be on the lookout for the book, and also the online community. I think that is going to continue to open and grow. And my hope for the online community is to take everything I've learned and just teach everything I can through an online platform so that people can go at their own pace and learn and grow. Because what I've seen over the last 10 years is that we're getting busier and busier, and there's so much content, and there's just so much out there that sometimes having options available on our own timing can be the most powerful, because we can set that time aside and somewhat like retreat into it. Mm-hmm. And go into that journey. So I'd say, yeah, Love the Mess is where things are heading.
That's fantastic. And if they want to find you, where would they go?
So my website is robinemmerich.com. It's ROBINEMMERICH.com. And then Instagram as well. And that's Robin Emmerich as well. It's Robin_Emmerich. And I'd say those are probably the top two ways. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to direct message me on Instagram or send me an email. Connecting with people is what brings me the most joy.
Robin, this has just been a fantastic conversation. I can't wait to see the book and what the online community is bringing to the world, because I just know whatever you do, it is filled with such intention and such love. So thank you for our time.
Thank you so much.
Have a fantastic day, Robin.
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I love Robin's story. I think what really kind of caught me off guard is that she's an artist, but at first she believed that she didn't have a creative bone in her body. And I think so many of us can learn from that.
Yeah, that part of the interview really made me think about the labels that we put on ourselves, how we limit opportunities because we define our abilities. We say, I am this, I'm not this. I mean, I remember when I was a musical theater artist, sort of perfecting my craft, often you would label yourself, I'm an actress who sings, or I'm a dancer who acts. The goal is to be the triple threat, the actor, singer, dancer, all in one, but we would almost limit by positioning ourselves as one over the other. I guess I encourage our listeners to really pay attention to the way we talk to ourselves. How are we limiting possibility, potential, creativity because we're stopping those moments due to the fact that we're telling ourselves something that we are or aren't?
Yeah, because I think we're allowed to be good at a lot of things, and we're also allowed to be mediocre at a lot of things that we just enjoy doing because we enjoy it. So I love that Robin's art is such an experience for her, and it's not about the end result. And I think we all have so much to learn from that.
If you were inspired by my conversation with Robin, I would love for you to share it with a friend. Also, reviews are the number one way that this podcast will be able to help more women step into their own creative life purpose, and I would be so honored to have yours. I'm so grateful you joined us for today's episode. I bet you're here because you know there's something more for your life. Whether you're moving into something creative or letting go in order to take that next creative step, I have something for you. My free guide to graceful transitions. You can find it at lzimmerman.com/transitions. And remember, if she made it, you can too.